Hello, welcome to the Let's Talk Kids Health Facebook Live show, episode 46. I'm Dr. Narissa Bauer, your host. I'm a behavioral pediatrician and founder of Let's Talk Kids Health. As you know, the concept of this show is to share information about behavioral health, parenting, and family wellness. Each week, I plan to bring you topics and guests to help me advance this mission so that we can all talk together. Now, let us know that you're here by commenting, asking questions, and liking at any time. And in a little bit, your questions will be asked of my guest. The replay will be immediately available after the broadcast. Please share this episode with anyone you think would benefit because sharing is caring. Now, if you don't want to miss future episodes or maybe check out the past ones, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Narissa Bauer MD, and follow my blog Facebook page, Let's Talk Kids Health. All right, now on to this week's guests. Sandy Bryant is the director of preschool programs for St. Mary's Early Childhood Center. She has also taught preschool for 8 years. Diane Pike is the director of outreach and professional development for St. Mary's Early Childhood Center. She has also taught kindergarten for 15 years. Diane and Sandy have both received certification in Applied Education Neuroscience from Butler University, and we'll get into that in a little bit. I am so excited to have both of you on tonight's show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.
It's been a long time, and this is very special to me because I first got to know you through when I first moved to Indianapolis from Seattle, and I was at the academic center and wanted to bring resident physicians to understand the importance of high quality early education. And I thought of the two of you as really representative of this. And I'm so glad that we're going to talk about this topic because it is so important. Maybe if we could, just to kind of kick us off, tell us a little bit about St. Mary's and the history behind St. Mary's and what that all means to both of you.
Sure, I'd be happy to start that off. So St. Mary's Early Childhood Center it's been in existence since 1961. It is the mission of this organization has always been to bring high quality early childhood education to children in poverty. We believe that all children deserve the very best in early childhood. It's such an important time, and high quality early childhood can change the trajectory of a child's life. So St. Mary's, we are currently in three different sites, and we are serving preschool children ages 3 to 5. We follow the Reggio Philosophy, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And what am I missing, Sandy?
No, I think that's good. One thing that's kind of different about us is our classrooms are all mixed age groups. So they're all 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. We don't separate them out into different ages, which we'll probably explain that in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I would also want to say that we felt that we wanted to be a model to the community that you can work with children in poverty and still be the very best. So we are NACE accredited, that's National Association for the Education of Young Children, and it's got a great website with lots of resources. And we are passed to quality level 4, which is the highest number that you can be. Okay. So it's just not enough to be average. We wanted to surpass that so that our children got the very best.
Yeah. So before, so many things to just unpack there because I'm trying to think about parents who are watching this, right? So let's talk about first, what do we mean when we say high quality early childhood education?
What we're talking about is, and again, you could find this on NACE, you can find they have 10 descriptors, but what we believe is high quality early childhood is authentic learning. It's hands-on. Children are active and doing, and it is not teacher directed. You don't hear the teacher voice, but it's more the child, following the child, listening to what their interests are, paying attention to them, and then adjusting to give them the very best and addressing the whole child. It's not about the academics where, can they finish this worksheet? And, if they're doing, it's not school unless they bring home 10 worksheets. We don't have worksheets because they're they're busy doing
Mm-hmm.
to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Sandy, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would just say it's so important to allow them to be creative and imaginative, and it's a magical age, 3, 4, and 5, and so we don't want to take that away. And the biggest part is if we can get them to have a love of school and a love of learning, the academics will come. But there's so much more that's important than just the academics.
Absolutely. And so again, I kind of want to go back to a couple things that Diane mentioned at the beginning. So for parents who are interested in, they're learning about high quality early childhood education, we're going to talk more about like why that's important. But if somebody were like, okay, is it just like all the centers, like just if I go down the street, is that one high quality? Like what are the indicators? And you mentioned NACE, you mentioned pathways to quality. I mean, what tips can you give parents when they're thinking about actually looking for high quality early childhood education?
Go
Yeah,
ahead,
I would
Sandy.
say go visit the centers, first of
Mhm.
all, and take a peek in the classrooms. And if you notice the children are just all sitting at tables doing a worksheet and it's really quiet and there's not a lot of children's voices, that might be a red flag for me, because they may not be as open-ended as another center might be. So, that might be not as creative for the child, not as imaginative for the child. They may not be able to have their voice heard as much. So that's something that I would look at. I would also look at screen time. If you walk into a classroom and the children are gathered around a computer or a TV and they're watching a monitor for a long period of time, that's probably not what you're looking for at this age. Diane, what else do you think?
Well, something that is just kind of hitting me is the importance of honoring their 3, 4, and 5-ness. It's so important to look for a place that is allowing the child to be themselves. Sometimes we get so caught up, and I talk to my kids about this all the time. We're always looking for the next step to get to the next step, and it's so the present is so important. So I think that's know developmentally where they should be, and that's what they should be living in their developmental place in this school, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, it does make sense. And I think what you're touching on is, telling families that it's really important, first of all, not to just sign up a child without going for a tour. You really want to see how you feel when you walk in there. You see the interactions between the teachers and children. That's really important. And then be able to always get a sense of that you have a good communication with the director, with the staff, with the teachers there. Because I have always thought that it's really hard for parents to separate from their children, especially when they're that young, and there's a lot of guilt sometimes of going back to work or having to work that much, right? But these are such formative years for kids, and we need to be able to trust the people that we leave our kids with. And so those safe, stable, nurturing relationships that we talk about a lot for parenting equally applies to that relationship that a child has with their early childhood educator, because you're doing so much with them.
I completely agree.
Yeah. So, I always thought that, you mentioned that St. Mary's is a model. You wanted to be a model for the community. Um, Tell us a little bit about Reggio Emilia. I mean, I know that St. Mary's utilizes this approach, but for those families or people watching, listening to this, can you help us understand what that means?
I would be happy to. So Reggio Emilia is actually a town in Italy, and back in the 90s, late 90s, they were listed in Newsweek as one of the top 10 preschools in the world.
Mm.
And Howard Gardner went there. There were lots of science at the time was connecting with it. But Reggio Emilia, as they were, so after the war, World War II, they were literally in the streets picking up bricks, washing them off so that they could rebuild their city. And at that time, there was an educational philosopher named Loris Malaguzzi who was there, and he said, as we rebuild our city and our buildings, we need to also look at education and rebuild it. We cannot do it the way it's been. one right answer. One right answer leads to fascism. And look what fascism has done to our city. Mm-hmm. And so when you look at the Reggio philosophy, it's very much emphasis on problem solving, creative thinking, thinking outside the box. We don't need children that are, little robots able to just do this task, do everything the same way. Our children are going to be the ones who figure out how to cure cancer and how to make wonderful things happen for our world. So, what else do I want to say about that? So the philosophy has, there are some guiding principles. One of the very foundational one is the image of the child. We talk about the image of the child. We believe children are capable, they're competent, they can do so many things. We sometimes as adults just need to step out of the way because they have such wonderful ways to look at the world and they can do things. We want to move them towards independence and so they can blossom and be their very best. We also talk about the 100 languages of children, and that is referring to all the ways of knowing something. So in our, right now, people will maybe put a huge emphasis on those academic tasks, paper, pencil, the worksheets, and do they know their letters and their numbers? Can they write them the proper way? All of that will come, but there's so much more to intelligence than those tasks. We also talk about the importance of family and the connections of family and the environment, relationships between environment, natural materials, and we talk about the environment as the third teacher. What you put in the environment and what you don't put in the environment speaks to your belief of children. Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Sandy, take it away.
Yeah, I think, and also the image of the teacher along with the image of the child. And it's very important in this Reggio philosophy that we don't look at the teacher as the knowledge of everything, and they're just going to pour the knowledge into the 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. They're very much a co-researcher, a co-learner alongside the child. So part of the Reggio philosophy is doing project work and letting the children do the research. So sometimes it's really easy as an adult. If a 3-year-old asks you a question, you of course usually know the answer, but instead of just giving that answer, we want to show the child how to do some research, whether it's getting on the computer or we get library books and we work alongside the child and find the answer. So that's really important. I think one of the biggest things about this philosophy is the relationship. Is the relationship between the teacher and the child. Everyone wants the children to respect the adult. Well, they're going to learn that by the adult respecting the child. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that's a different way of thinking. But it's very important if you want that child to learn those skills to model them and to treat them that way as well. So I think that's a really big part of what we do with the philosophy.
Mm-hmm. I love that approach. And, thank you for explaining it very well. I think there's other types of approaches. Can we briefly talk about that? Because I think, again, Reggio Emilia, there's also Montessori, play-based, any others that you might want to talk about? Like, what is is the majority of childcare centers Reggio Emilia?
No, I don't think there are. And part of my job with St. Mary's is to go out in the community and offer professional development to programs to help them understand what is high quality. And we believe that when you are doing the Reggio philosophy and really incorporating all of those principles that we just talked about, then that's best practice. That is the best for children. Mm-hmm. There are other ways, play-based, they are opening up free flow for the children in their centers, but maybe not quite the same emphasis on the 100 languages and that type of thing. Mm-hmm. Montessori, they talk about Montessori as being the mother of of Reggio Philosophy. She kind of came right before. So there's a lot of concepts that are the same. I would say a difference between the Reggio Philosophy and Montessori. Montessori has quite an emphasis on individual tasks being completed by the individual. And when they can do that properly, then they move on to the next one. Where I would say the Reggio Philosophy has more of a cooperative, working together, kind of like what we have to do in the real world as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, when I was learning about the different approaches, when you walk into, a traditional, childcare center, you see all the toys, you see all the different things that kids like to play with at this age, right? But then when you go into a Montessori, they have more manipulatives, it's, more blocks and things like that. Again, that emphasis on that work. And then Reggio sort of really does hone in on that interaction piece with the teacher, the community. I think it's, I often get this question, and I'd like your opinion on this. When I used to teach residents about this, about what to be looking for so that they can counsel families also on this topic, is there one particular approach that's better, and or like, how do you find the best fit for your child?
Sandy, you want to take that one?
Well, I mean, we're going to vote for the Reggio Philosophy because we believe wholeheartedly that that is what's best. That doesn't mean there's not other good things out there.
Mm-hmm.
I think as a parent, as you're looking, if you're seeing the center doing developmentally appropriate things, age appropriate activities, that maybe for the 3, 4, and 5-year-old, a lot of pencil paper isn't probably the best thing, I would say. The children really need to be able to be creative and have their own ideas and explore and just, interact with different materials like you were talking about. So, I don't like to say other ones are bad, but I do believe the Reggio Philosophy is absolutely the best for children. But if you find a place that's doing, the developmentally appropriate, age appropriate activities, then I would say that's better than a lot of pencil paper centers.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
think I'll throw in there just a little bit about process and product. So we talk, and it relates to the 100 languages. And so we don't do crafts where the teacher does a model and shows the child. Then as soon as you do that, as soon as you give the child a model, then there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. And so there is a heavy emphasis on doing lots of art. We have give them opportunities with clay, different kinds of painting on the table, on the easel, with watercolors, tempera. And so I would say if you're looking at a site, if you see, just a bunch of worksheets on the wall that everybody's are the same with the gold star because they did a great job, I don't know, or, a bunch of paper plate frogs that's more product oriented, and process oriented would be something that I would be looking for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I recognize that might not be a fair question, right? But but I think, I'm thinking about like what parents might be thinking, like, well, gosh, this sounds great, but what if it's not available, right? I mean, what are the other options? Because what really struck me, because before I was in Indianapolis, I trained in Seattle. That was where I was first exposed to the Reggio Emilia approach at another center. What struck me though when I came to learn about you guys is you're using this in the application and offering of this to children in poverty, right? I mean, typically across the nation, people who have resources can get their children into places that offer this type of approach.
Yes.
But it is very it's rare
Yes.
to be able to offer such high quality early childhood education to the most vulnerable children who could really benefit from it. I mean, everybody can benefit from it, but like to not keep those children out of it.
Exactly. It is more of this philosophy is more found in private settings where it's quite a price tag. And I guess I should throw in here, we serve children in poverty. I believe we're at like 93%. Excuse me. We also accept CCDF vouchers and On My Way Pre-K if anyone is interested in those. And we also do have tuition paying. So we try to keep it well-rounded, and we intermix the ages, and to us it's a real benefit to have all of those in a big mixing bowl and have everybody together. They really do benefit.
Yeah, I have always enjoyed coming to visit the center. It just has this great kind of climate and atmosphere about it, and everything is just beautiful. Like looking at the artifacts that are produced by the children, all the research that they do, where their imagination goes. It's really impressive. But now let's transition to another question. So, what does science actually tell us about why early childhood education is so important?
Well, it is. I think that we just find out more and more, and as the brain research comes, it kind of validates what we already knew, that the early childhood years, there's so much that's going on. That little baby, even in the mother's womb, that brain is growing, and by age 2, that child's got more neural connections than actually a college student, because they just keep growing and growing. When the child hits about seventh or eighth grade, it starts to slough off what's not used. But everything is new, so there are connections being made. So at the early childhood years, we talk about the importance of serve and return, where you're talking to the child, you're responding to them. We always, again, Sandy said it earlier, in really our whole talk, everything boils down to relationships and connection. With the brain science that supports it, the Reggio Philosophy, when we talk about the image of the child, and HighQuality. If you have good relationships, that a child learns from the people that they love. And so, what else can you say?
That's
What do you
right.
want to add to that? I know that there's a ton more to say.
Yeah, I think it's just, not only the serve and return is very important. I tell our teachers all the time, a lot of times we just need to be quiet, and we need to do what we talk about at our centers as full body listening and completely engaging. So the child is very receptive to not just your words, but your eyes and your smile or your facial expressions. And the child will tell you a lot by their body language as well. So it's just really important to make those connections, that the child feels that they're loved and that they trust us and we trust them, and there's a mutual respect, and that they're not wrong if they have different emotions or feelings, and we acknowledge those and we help them work through it. And yeah, it's just really important for those connections to be made all the way around.
hmm I love that. I mean, you're really emphasizing the importance of that early relational health piece, and that safe, stable, nurturing relationship piece, that serve and return. I mean, these are so critical, especially in that time frame of where brain cells are, there all those connections are happening, and then the pruning and all of that. But it's
Mhm.
so important for the well-being of the child. So I guess my last question to you is, in general, like, can you just, again, because we're touching on the importance of high quality early childhood education, any other things for parents to be looking for? I mean, just, class ratios, like, tell us
Mhm.
about that at St. Mary's. Anything else that you want to describe?
I was going to mention the ratios, because that is important. If you're touring a place and you see 25 3-year-olds in a room, or you see three through age 7 all together, then you know that they aren't quite following. Um, our The ratios are, by licensing rules, are 1 to 10 for 3-year-olds. And so if you have a mixed age group, as we do, 3, 4, 5, you go by the youngest child.
Mhm.
So a mixed age the highest would be like a 1 to 10. We try to keep it at 1 to 7 or 8, just so that we can work with small groups and be able to take them to the studio. We have a studio to take them outside. We don't do a lot in whole group. Like if you just are going and touring and you just see everybody together and then they all go here and they all go there, sometimes it's hard to give the children what they need when you're doing everything whole group.
Mm-hmm.
I would say.
Yeah, I would say the other thing to look for as you're visiting a center is how the teacher reacts to you coming into the classroom. Pay attention, if you feel welcomed into the room. I mean, it should always be an open door policy. The teacher should never mind a family visiting or a parent stopping by unannounced. So just, pay attention to that and how you're received as with everybody, actually, from the front desk, on through the building. Because it's really important to have the relationship between the family and the staff as well, so just kind of pay attention to how you're received as you're going through the building.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also just a feeling, like I'm not saying that every day is perfect at St. Mary's, but there is, when you come, it's a happy busy,
Yeah.
it is not quiet. And I wouldn't say, oh, that place was so great because all the children were sitting and they were, all working on their thing and it was quiet. Like sometimes that might appear to be, oh, wow, that's great. They're really working hard. But that is not what a 3, 4, and 5-year-old normally does. So I would say look for a busy, happy sound.
Yes, that's great. I love that description because I know exactly what you mean because I've been there. So yeah. Yeah. So any other last minute, kind of points from either of you? This has been a wonderful discussion.
I don't think I have anything else.
Yeah, I think we've hit some good things.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate that. I think this is really helpful, kind of talking about the importance of it, why, what to look for, what Reggio Emilia is, how it compares to other approaches to preschool education, early childhood education. And, I think the bottom line is, parents, do your due diligence, tour where you are thinking about putting your child. It is a very important decision, and you want to feel good about it too. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. Well, thank you. And I do want to introduce my next week's guests. For those of you who watch, next week's special guest is Dr. Tashana Stokes. She is a pediatrician in Atlanta, and she is a children's book author now. And she is going to be talking to me about the importance of nurturing self-esteem in children. And then also, if you have any ideas or topics you want to see us talk about on this platform, please make sure to send me an email at drnarissa@letstalkkidshealth.org or follow me on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Drop me a comment, a private message, whatever. I'm always reading those. I'm grateful for those ideas because, the idea is that we all talk about these things together. And then just a last plug, because it is the end of it. We are done with November. We are in December now. But our November book club pick was Driven to Distraction by Dr. Ed Hollowell. Now, he is going to be doing a Facebook Live book chat with me December 13th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. So I just wanted to advertise that. It is not too late to pick up the book, listen to it on Audible if you're interested, and then hop in and watch that show. It's going to be a really good episode, and I'm really excited that he said yes, he would come. All right. So thank you so much to both of you. Again, such an important topic. Thanks for the work that you do. I think with the pandemic, it really highlighted how important early childhood education, educators in schools play in the education of our children and the future generations. And it's not been easy for anybody. So you guys are doing the hard work, the love, sweat, and tears when parents cannot be there. So thank you so much for your dedication, your passion for this topic.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for having us.
Yes, thank you. We'll see you guys next week.